We're on our way to the Coke Museum. That's coal Coke, not Coca-Cola. Coke Museum in Dunlap, Tennessee. We're crossing the mountain. I'm not sure if it's Mulberry Mountain or Spencer Mountain, but there's an overlook here that looks down on the Sequatchie Valley. So I had to get this on the picture going to the Coke Museum. We picked a perfect day. Beautiful blue sky, white clouds. Just going on another adventure. Isn't that beautiful? Man, you can see forever. This is Coke Ovens Park. I believe this is Dunlap, Tennessee's best kept secret. Listed in the Historic Registry, the National Register of Historic Places. Look at that. This is a very, very, very interesting place. This is the remains of the coke ovens. There were a bunch. I'm not sure how many, but there were a bunch of these made. This is what turned the coal into coke. This is all that remains of these. Now this is just in Dunlap, Tennessee. For about 20 or plus years, they took the coal. It would take a ton of coal. I mean, it would take 2 tons of coal to make 1 ton of coke. And that's what they used to fire up the blast furnaces in Chattanooga, Tennessee, to make pig iron. But they would bring the coal down off the mountain, and actually, there's a real good description. I looked at Google, but I was going to have the guy in the museum tell it to me all again. I got up here, and the museum's only open on Saturdays and Sundays, so I missed out on that. But it was quite a thing. They would fill these were big mounds, and the coal would go into these big mounds, and then they would seal it up with wax, or not necessarily wax, sand and something, but they would spread it out even and turn it into coke. But look at these here. I'm going to back up a minute. All the way down there. I mean, this is not actually what it looked like. Think about this. This was a This is just what remains, just the stone. Look at the moss on those rocks. Now this quit operation back in the 20s. Picture of an old rail car up here at the Coke Museum. All kinds of stuff to see in here. On the weekends, volunteers come and open up the museum and tell you all kinds of information about what went on here during the height of the Coke operations. I have no idea what this one was used for, but obviously it was used for something here. We are going into the Dunlap Coke Ovens Museum. What is your name?
Hugh.
Hugh?
Yeah.
Hugh's going to guide us. He's actually opening it up for us. They're usually open on Saturday and Sunday.
Right.
And he's letting us, what is today, Thursday?
Yes.
So we get to go inside and see the inside. Hugh, thanks a lot.
You're more than welcome. Come on in.
All right, let's see what we see in here. Oh wow, air conditioning and everything. Good grief.
It's a different kind of a chair, isn't it?
It's uncomfortable.
Oh, well.
I needed this chair in high school, and I would have stayed awake, and I would have gotten better grades.
Ha! Isn't that the truth?
How would you like to see the video? What we did here 100 years ago.
Where's your restroom?
Go in this room here, go to your right, all the way back.
Okay.
You'll see a big door, and the ladies' room is to the left.
Okay. Thank you.
1899, 1999, coal history. This is the company store right here. Can you see that? Now we are actually in the room that picture is made. And if you see up on top the opening there, I'm going to put my finger up there, right there, that opening. See that opening? Now watch here. Here's the opening, but it's sealed off today because of the air conditioning and the heat bill, so they just sealed off the top. But this is the actual room of the company store. The song, the company, what was the name of the song, Tennessee Ernie Ford?
16 tons.
Tell me what your mom used to say about the 16 tons.
Well, it was my grandmother. My grandfather was a coal miner.
Okay.
And they were always in debt to the company store, and there was no way out. The only way out was to die, which is what my grandfather did. He died from black lung, and so my grandmother got evicted from the house she was living in. She moved to Ohio, moved in with a sister and brother-in-law. She said, I packed up your daddy, and we moved up to Cincinnati, and she said she did laundry and ironing and cleaned houses or offices, whatever work she could find to make ends meet. She moved up there. So it was a hard life.
How much did they require a day?
16 tons was what my grandmother told me, and if you didn't get 16 tons a day, you didn't get paid for that day. The company's policy was that they hired you to dig 16 tons a day.
When they said 16 tons, literally you shoveled 16 tons into a whatever they shoveled it into, and they weighed it?
Yeah.
And they weighed it, and you either got 16 tons or you didn't. But
well, you didn't get 16 tons on one car.
Okay.
It would be rolled onto the scale. They'd write down how much it weighed, and then all the cars that you loaded during the day, they all were weighed, and they had to total up to 16 tons.
That was more than an 8-hour day, I'm sure.
My grandmother never told me. All she ever worried about was my grandfather going into the mine, and she hoped that he came out at the end of the day.
Wow. Wow. Hey, Hugh, I took pictures of those coke ovens, but I didn't know anything about them, so I didn't say anything about them. Tell me what the story. You got the coal from the mountain and you brought it down to the coke oven. What'd you do with it in those ovens?
We put it in the ovens and it was burned.
And then what'd they do with it?
What was left was cinders that was about 85% carbon, and that would burn hot enough to melt iron ore to make steel. So that's what the coke was used.
So then the coke was sent to Chattanooga then, or somewhere where they did
all
the
the coke
smelting.
produced here went to Chattanooga and Birmingham.
Birmingham.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody knows about Birmingham steel, I think, back in the day.
Yeah, probably.
Huh. Hey, all right, we're just going to glance around and look at the museum here.
Okay, those were the newer ones. See, we're in this building here. There were 168 coke ovens, and they went back and forth up here.
Okay.
All right. Now, they had newer, more modern ones that were bigger, and they built 100. There's 50 on each
When I
side.
walked behind here, where was I walking?
Did you see the caboose?
Yes, I was up behind the caboose then.
Okay, on the other side of the caboose
Okay.
are 100 coke ovens.
And that's the ones I got on film.
50 on each side, and that's what they look like today, all the stonework. This is a photograph of the new ones when they were under construction.
Okay. When you say new, you're still talking about 1920s, aren't you?
Yeah, this place closed in 1927. I believe these were built in around 1916.
Okay.
Now, the 100 here, which you see here, did the same amount of work as the 168
Yeah,
here.
just more
So those 168 were phased out to use the 100 that were here.
Was it still pretty much the same technique, I would assume?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were just larger and more efficient. And the coal, I'm sure you've seen coal before. All right?
Oh, yeah.
This by itself wasn't easily melted, or the iron ore, and you can see how heavy the iron ore is. This by itself didn't really burn hot enough to melt that. So what they did was they burned out all the impurities. Now you can see how light this is.
Oh, yeah.
That's the coal with all the impurities.
So what is this right here? This is the coke?
That's the coke.
That's the coke.
almost like
Where,
raw
where,
wood.
where did most of this iron ore come out of?
That I don't know where it came from.
Because I'm from Minnesota, and I know we got a lot out of northern Minnesota, but I don't know if they would have shipped it this far.
That I'm not sure where the iron ore came from, but so once this was burned and you had this left, this would burn, I think, at like 2,500 degrees, which is hot enough to melt the iron
Yeah.
in the steel making process.
Good grief. It took a... Look at that.
And this is part of one of the long hooks. You saw the guy used a long hook to pull the coke out of the oven. And it's,
Have you got one of those things you use to level it with? Is there one in here?
this is part of one.
Oh, that's
yeah.
the part that he used to level it with.
That looks pretty heavy in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, those guys, their muscles had to be super. Wow.
Well, that's what they did for their living, and it was hard work. It wasn't just the coal miners that got black lung.
Yeah.
Just you saw how smoky it was, and with all those ovens burning, it
I bet
everybody was
around.
breathing in. The
Yeah,
coal
breathing in
gas
the
and all.
stuff that just came out.
Okay, come over here. I'll show you their horses. All the coal miners here had their own horse, and they would ride
Oh, how
their
pretty.
horses down the mountain. I told you the coal mine here was on top of the mountain, and there was an incline that came down.
Is the incline still intact?
It's still open. There's a trail that goes to the top.
What they call the coal miner source. There's a steep incline to the top of the mountain where the coal was, and at the end of their shift, when they got done, they would sit on it.
Here,
Or
there's a photograph down here.
here's a photograph right here. Oh, okay. And they just came down this mountain. I saw a sign right here, 60 miles per hour.
Yeah, they say on Sundays, the day off, they used to have races.
Riding the rail that speeds up to 60 miles per hour on incline horses was a favorite sport of the men who mined the coal mines and fired the coke ovens in Dunlap, Tennessee. Pick that back up and show it to me again. This is what they sat on. What was the leather for in the back?
The leather was like a brake pad.
Okay.
And when they set this on the rail.
Remember, 60 miles an hour.
They could lean back, and that piece of leather was like a brake.
God, these guys had no fear.
Well, they were coal miners.
Yeah, I guess so.
They faced death every day.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
anyway, if you look at this photograph over here,
Oh, look at that, too. There's a...
you will see that this guy here is holding his horse. See it right there?
Oh, wait a minute. I thought this was a scale model.
No.
And then Hugh pointed out, this is it. They sat their butts right there, and when they wanted to stop it, they'd raise up the front, and that leather would drag on the rail. And son of a gun, those guys were daredevils. I thought that was a scale model. That is it.
Some were even smaller. I mean,
Look at here. Look at here. Some were even smaller. Good grief. This is very intriguing. We're looking at a miner's lunchbox.
and there were a couple of compartments.
Okay, I guess that'd be for soup maybe, or what?
Well, they would put their lunch in here, and they would also put food in the bottom.
All right.
But they would never eat the food in the bottom. They would only eat the food on the top. The reasoning for that, if there was a cave-in or an explosion, they would still have some food left to eat.
Oh, wow.
And as I understand it, my grandmother said that the next day they would take the food that was in the bottom here and put it in this one and put fresh food in the bottom.
So they keep on turning it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have this on tape, Hugh, but your grandpa died at what age from what?
34 from black lung.
From black lung. So he lived it, and he was one of the guys raced down this, what do you call these horses?
They're miners' horses.
Miners' horses.
Yeah.
So he lost his grandpa black lung at 34. Well, look at all this. I mean, everything in here is totally fascinating.
Yep. As I told you before, there was no electricity here.
Right. There were at the time of no electricity.
So they would use a hand drill. This is the breastplate. They would lean in on that, and they would turn the drill to drill the hole for the explosive charge. Once the hole was drilled, then they could put the explosive charge in.
And then stand back and hope they did it right, I guess.
And when they put this in, they would use this ramrod. And as you can see, this ramrod has a notch in the end. And what that notch was for,
oh, okay.
that notch was for the wire. Okay? They would use this tamper, and they would push the explosive charge in. And then they would use this gizmo here.
Oh, yeah. We've seen this in every Western.
Yeah.
Will that come out where you can demonstrate it, or is it stuck in there?
Is so old, it's
okay.
Pretty much.
Yeah, all of us kids, well, I'm 71, so when I watch Westerns, this is what we all saw when they were blowing up the mines or the bridges or whatever they blew up.
Yep. That's what they used in those days.
Oh, look at all the tools up here. Just what you'd expect.
These are some of the mining crews. My grandfather might be in one of these photographs.
Oh, yeah.
But I never knew him, and so
I bet your grandma and grandpa didn't fuss over things that just really didn't matter.
No.
She never knew when he wasn't going to come home.
I did ask my grandmother one time why she didn't take pictures of Dad when he was little, because all of us have baby pictures, but she said, honey, we were poor, we were coal miners, and we couldn't afford a camera. And she said if someone gave us a camera, we didn't have money for film.
Now, we're talking about Hugh's grandpa. Tell me the story about the company store again, about actually evicting the mom after the dad died.
I can tell you this about that. My grandmother hated it because they were always in debt to the company store. And she told me that when my grandfather got his paycheck, it would be for $4 or $5. The only place to cash it was at the company store. He would go to the company store with his paycheck. It would be for $5. They owe the company store $7. So he would just sign his check and just give it back to the company. Meanwhile, he needs credit because he has to get food, supplies, and whatnot until the next payday. So they were in debt to the company store, and they just kept getting
Just the store down below
a
the
lot
house.
of companies. It wasn't
Yeah.
just the coal mines.
No, I know.
Coal mines.
Yeah, textiles did that a lot
Steel
too.
mills, railroads, coal
Yeah.
mines, they all wanted to get in on it because you were stuck. Once you owed money to the company store, you were stuck because in those days they had debtors' prisons. And you couldn't walk
Yeah, you
out
couldn't
and owe
walk
money
out.
to the company store. They would alert the sheriff and you'd be arrested and go to
And
jail.
then how are you supposed to pay that?
No, they had to do 16 ton every day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good
And
grief.
as you can see, this photograph, some of the miners took their kids into the mines with them to make sure that they got it all.
They got the 16, so it was a family affair there
Yep.
too. Wow. Hugh, thanks a lot. I'm telling you what, your take on this is way more than just coming in here and looking at pictures.
I moved here from Florida in 2010 because my grandfather was born in this area. His father was born in this area.
And it's beautiful.
Yes. Oh,
Oh.
we came up here every year for a family reunion. And every year on the way back to Florida, me and my wife would talk about this would be a great place to retire. So I worked at Kennedy Space Center on the space shuttle program.
Oh,
And
really?
as you know, they don't fly the space shuttle anymore, so me and 10,000 other people got laid off. But I was fortunate because I was that close to retirement. So when I got laid off, by the time my unemployment ran out, I was able to just glide right into retirement, my pension and Social Security. And so, but I worked with people that had kids in high school, kids in college, and they had cars and homes, mortgages and all that. And they were really hurt by
Oh, yeah.
the space shuttle being phased out. But I was fortunate. So, and that's how I came to
Yeah, this
be
place,
here.
this place over here is just beautiful. This
See his eyes move back and
Yes.
forth.
That would scare the gravy to death.
He was a Halloween decoration that someone bought, dressed him up like a coal miner, and donated him to the museum.
Yeah, though, everybody do their own.
Got to get a picture of the still. So whose relative was the sheriff that busted this up? The director's?
Director Carson Camp.
The director's relative was the sheriff that actually busted up this still. That's how it ended up here in the museum.